Hello, 326 class. This is Melanie Kalman, and I want to talk a little bit more about our history, about the matriarchs and men that make up our history. It's mostly women because we were a mostly female occupation or profession. So let us start. Nursing's matriarchs and great men. We had some really strong women who championed nursing. We have a history to be proud of. I'm assuming you all know about Florence Nightingale, so I'm going to talk about others who came after her. Sojourner Truth. Her real name was Isabella Baumfree. She's better known, though, as Sojourner Truth. She was born into slavery in Ulster County, New York in 1797, and later gained fame as an abolitionist and women's rights activist. But Truth was originally a nurse. She was promised her freedom a year before the 1827 Emancipation Act, but when her owner changed her mind, she fled with her young daughter Sophia in 1826. In her later years, Truth worked at the National Freedmen's Relief Association in Washington, D.C., where she strove to improve the cleanliness and quality of care. But perhaps most notably, Truth used her strong voice and eloquent speeches to urge Congress to finance training programs for nurses. In an age before any formal nurse training existed, Truth's perception and advocacy of the need of such education remains truly legendary. Mary Eliza Mahoney graduated from the Training School of Nurses, New England Hospital for Women and Children in 1879. Mahoney was among the 3 graduates out of the 40 students who began the program, and the only African American awarded a diploma. In fact, she was the first African American graduate nurse. In case you missed that earlier, 40 started the program, only 3 graduated. During her 40 years in nursing, she provided exemplary patient care and made outstanding contributions to nursing. In 1909, she gave the address at the Colored Graduate Nurses. She was the first African-American graduate in the U.S. I know I said that before, it's worth hearing again. She was deeply religious and just 5 feet tall, 90 pounds. She devoted herself to private nursing due to the rampant discrimination against Black women in public nursing at the time. Mary Mahoney was widely recognized within her field as a pioneer who opened the door of opportunity for many Black women interested in the nursing profession. When the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses was organized in New York in 1908, Mahoney was asked to give the welcoming address. Numerous honors were posthumously given to Mary Mahoney, including the Mary Mahoney Medal, an award offered annually, which signifies excellence in nursing. Mahoney was inducted into both the Nursing Hall of Fame and the National Women's Hall of Fame. I think many of you know about the Mary Mahoney Award, which was established in 1936 by the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. The Mary Mahoney Award is now given by ANA when the two merged in 1952. By the way, there was the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses because Black nurses weren't allowed in the ANA until 1952. So the Mary Mahoney Award was established to honor her active participation in nursing organizations and her effort to raise the status of African American nurses in professional life. Adibel Samuel Tommins was also an ANA Hall of Fame inductee and a crusader for equal opportunities for Blacks in nursing. Toms felt a deep sense of responsibility to improve relationships between persons of all race. She was a graduate of Lincoln School of Nursing in New York. Tom served 18 years there as assistant superintendent of nursing. She became acting director at a time when Blacks rarely held high-level positions. Toms was among the first to recognize that public health was a new field of nursing, and public health belonged in nursing. In 1917, she added a course on public health to the school's curriculum. During her 7-year term as president of the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses, Toms worked for acceptance of Black nurses as members of the American Red Cross. She also campaigned for equal rights for Black nurses in the U.S. Army Corps. She was an author as well as educator and crusader. She wrote Pathfinders, a history of the progress of the colored graduate nurse. In 1936, Toms became the first nurse to receive the Mary Mahoney Medal. Martha Minerva Franklin, one of the first to actively campaign for racial equality in nursing, was the catalyst for collective action by Black nurses in the early 1900s. The only Black graduate of her class at Women's Hospital Training for Nurses in Philadelphia, Franklin recognized Black nurses needed help to improve their professional status. Under Martha Franklin's guidance, 52 nurses assembled to form the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses in 1908, and Franklin was elected the president. The goals of that organization were to promote the standards and welfare of all trained nurses and to break down racial discriminations in the profession. A year later, the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses stated Black nurses must meet required standards for all nurses so that a double standard based on race could not be practiced. She was also an ANA Hall of Fame inductee. Now, Lavinia Lloyd Dock and the next two nurses were instrumental in nursing education in the beginning of the 20th century. She was a staunch advocate of legislation to control nursing practice. She's remembered for her outstanding contributions to nursing literature. She graduated from Bellevue Training School for Nurses in New York City in 1886 and soon became the night supervisor at Bellevue. Dock became aware of the problems students faced in studying drugs and solutions. In 1889, while serving as night supervisor, she became alarmed as physicians frequently wrote lethal medication prescriptions. They just got the dosages wrong. And then the nurses gave these lethal dosages because they didn't know what dosages to give. So in order to solve this problem, she decided that nurses needed a better understanding of medications. She began a nursing standard that is still taught in all nursing school, basic pharmacology. She wrote Materia Medica for nurses, one of the first texts for nurses. She also wrote Hygiene and Morality, and in 1907, co-authored with Adelaide Nutting the first 2 volumes of the 4-volume History of Nursing. Volumes 3 and 4 were completed by Dock alone after Nutting died. During her multifaceted career, Doc worked for 20 years with Lillian Wald, and she lived at the Henry Street settlement with Elizabeth Hampton Robbs, who came from Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. While she was at the Henry Street settlement, Lavinia Doc was struck by the horrible conditions of poverty, sanitation, pornography, child prostitution, violence, drugs, and communicable diseases seen in the poor. She lived among the immigrants. The settlement was the first to provide nursing care to those residents living in these settlement houses. As far as nursing, she supported the founding of the American Journal of Nursing. She promoted the use of textbooks. She improved teaching methods. She established minimum professional standard, and she adopted minimum entrance requirements into nursing school. Also, throughout her life, she was a devoted suffragette and political activist. Some of her activist issues. In 1912, she walked with 4 other women from New York City to Albany on a suffrage hike. She called for the abolition of a double standard of morality. She called to abolish, not regulate, prostitution. She called for suffrage for women and self-control for men. She was a crusader against VD, now called STIs, of course, and she was an early member of American Society of Sanitary and Moral Prophylaxis, otherwise known as condoms. She praised birth control leader Margaret Sanger for, quote, teaching to poor working women what well-to-do women may learn from a reliable authority. Again, this is birth control. Perhaps the greatest passion of her life was women's suffrage. She believed that women had to have equal citizenship if they were going to improve the lives and the conditions of society. In 1886, she attempted to vote, but Teddy Roosevelt, who was then the police commissioner of New York, refused to arrest her. However, don't worry, others did arrest her for trying to vote. Excuse me. Once she retired, Lavinia dedicated her time to women's right to vote, and she was arrested on 3 separate occasions. Her support was not only focused on women's suffrage, but other important issues like better housing for immigrants, safer working conditions, state and national legislation to regulate child labor, pensions, and health insurance. Excuse me. Mary Adelaide Nutting, another Hall of Fame inductee, was honored for her outstanding contributions to nursing and nursing education. Mary Adelaide Nutting was a noted educator, historian, and scholar. She was a strong advocate of university education for nurses and instrumental in developing the first BS program at Columbia University. Don't forget, she died in 1948, so she was a woman before her time. It was a modern